Good morning, everybody. This is a short video for SEDE 4312. I wanted to take a minute and talk to you about the Unit 2 project that you're getting ready to complete. So for this project, your task is to choose one of the lessons from the Notice and Note textbook that we're currently using, the one on fiction. It can be a signpost lesson or it can be one of the other lessons that's included in the book. You choose based on what your students' needs and on what your students need and based on what you can negotiate with your cooperating teacher. So your task for this project is going to be to take one of those lessons, write it up using the U of H lesson plan template, teach the lesson to one of your classes of students, and then write a reflection about how that went. I want to know what worked, what didn't work, what you would do differently, what you struggled with, what you felt really successful with, all of that information. We're working toward being reflective practitioners and really thinking about our teaching and how it impacts the students and how students respond and what they get from it. So the beef of this lesson is teaching the lesson and then really being a reflective practitioner about how it went. What you'll turn into me are your lesson plan, your reflection, and any evaluations that are completed by either your cooperating teacher or your field supervisor or site coordinator. And then if you do a self-evaluation, that's really considered part of the reflection. But let's say you choose to fill out an evaluation form on yourself, submit that as well. So let's talk about this U of H lesson plan template for a minute. Here is my contrasts and contradictions lesson written up using the template. I've posted this on Blackboard for you as well, so you can see how it works. So you can see, I just want to walk you through how this template works. Here's my name. The title is Contrasts and Contradictions Signpost. Here's a short description. I titled this unit Close Reading, but for you it's probably going to be something different. Here are the Teks that I found that align with this particular lesson. I aimed this at an 8th grade class, so mine are grade 8 Teks. So use context to determine or clarify meaning of unfamiliar or ambiguous words. Explain how the values and beliefs of particular characters are affected by the historical and cultural setting of the literary work. Analyze how the central character's qualities influence the theme of a fictional work. And then these two are from Figure 19. Ask literal, interpretive, evaluative, and universal questions of texts and make complex inferences. Here's my objective. The student will identify one way in which authors show us how a character changes by locating clues, making inferences, and supporting those inferences with textual evidence. Many of the classes in which I work in the schools are about 50 minutes, so I said this was about a 50-minute class period. The terms or vocabulary I felt like kids were going to need to know were specific to this textbook that we're reading. So signposts, contrasts, and contradictions. I need a document camera for it. I could have done it without a document camera. I could have projected the text using my computer and annotated that way. I also need copies of the text for each student, pencils, pens, sticky notes, an anchor chart. Those are my materials. So I don't know why there's a blank page. So it says right here on the left-hand side that this template is built on the traditional Madeline Hunter type of lesson structure. Okay, the Madeline Hunter lesson structure follows the gradual release model. So I do, we do, you do. This is just some information that's included in the template to help you figure out what to put in the different boxes. So for me, the focus, or what Hunter called the anticipatory set, the way to hook the students, was a short discussion about Hermione and Harry Potter and how she behaves. I wrote over here, I'll set the stage and let students respond and talk in pairs. The content. This is where I directly explained this particular signpost that was called Contrasts and Contradictions. And then I modeled for students using the first chunk of the text how I notice, how I pay attention, am alert for that signpost, and then how I answer that question, that generalizable language. Why did the character do that? Using a think aloud practice. Over here, I wrote in what students are going to be doing. They were to follow along while I read aloud and thought aloud, and then they shared out what they noticed. Okay, so that's the I do. The we do is the guided practice. This is where I read aloud the next section of the text, and this time I let the students turn and talk about contrasts and contradictions they noticed and then shared out. Then we moved into the third section, so my guided practice, or we do, had two parts to it. Okay, and then independent practice, this was the you do. Again, I still read aloud, but students were responsible for all of the thinking by marking their text, by explaining their thinking on sticky notes, and then sharing out with the class. And then closure was at the very end when we reviewed the contrast and contradiction signpost and talked about the generalizable language, the question you always have to ask yourself. Okay, so that's how I took my lesson and fit it into that U of H lesson plan template. And then down at the end, it talks about special education students. I could differentiate as needed. I did not specify how I could differentiate, but I could have paired them with stronger students. I could have had them work together. For English language learners, I modeled the annotation and the thinking for them. So that is an accommodation or a differentiated strategy already. Here are some notes that I made about if there were any problems with technology, about assessment, and then I gave credit to notice and note. That's where I got the lesson. Okay, so that should help you figure out how you need to put together this lesson and what you need to include. If you have questions, make sure you email me. Please pay special attention to when this project is due, and then know that we won't see each other face to face for several weeks, so you'll need to pay attention to what's coming up online. Thanks, and have a great day.